Hello everyone. So now we are in week 6 and we will be doing more of algorithms in this week. So last week we talked about dynamic programming. Okay, so this was a very interesting paradigm of designing algorithms. And we have talked about divide and conquer earlier. Yes. And today we will be talking about the third paradigm. So we will be studying 3 paradigms in this course. And the third one we will talk in this week is the greedy algorithms. This is for this week. Okay. Now, the name greedy itself says something about what we will be doing in these algorithms. We will be making some greedy choices, okay? But why should these work, and how do you ensure that you are actually getting a correct solution? So that is what we have to see in detail through various examples. So let me just start from like what is the difference between a dynamic and a greedy algorithm. So what do you do in dynamic programming algorithm? So you try to find an optimal service structure. And what is that? That is the optimal solution for a larger problem. So you have a larger instance, and you write it in terms of optimal solution for smaller problems or subproblem. Okay, and while doing that, you find, okay, it can be written as optimal solution of multiple sub problems, and you have to, among multiple such possibilities, you have to take one. Generally these are max or min, depending on your criteria or some other criteria. You have to choose one of this. So you have to choose max, min, or something else. You have to choose one of this. Okay, now that's where it takes some time, because you have to enumerate a few possibilities, compute these possibilities, and choose one of this from here. Now what happens in greedy algorithm? So when you again are writing your optimal solution in terms of optimal solution for subproblems. I mean, you can always think in that way, but while choosing, instead of computing all of these possibilities, what you do, so you see if you can identify one choice, and that should be with some easily computable property. So you need to identify one choice, and that is guaranteed to be at least one optimal solution. At least one optimal solution. And once you're able to identify that choice or that property, and immediately you can say, yes, I am greedily choosing that. I am not trying to compute all that and finding min or max, but I am just finding one choice, using that, and going ahead. And every time I keep on making that greedy choice. Okay, but very important, it should be easily computable. You should not spend as much time as you were doing in computing all that and finding one max. It should be easily computable, and this choice, it should be guaranteed to be at least in one optimal solution. That's where some notion of proofs will also come. So you may need to prove. So proof may be required. Well, it will be required. Okay, so some sort of proof will be required. So yes, so that is where the greedy algorithms differ from dynamic programming. So yeah, let's actually take examples. So these are best taught using examples. So let's take an example. So suppose I take a very simple problem that is about coin change. Okay, and let me first formally state the problem. So suppose you want to make change of n rupees using some various denomination coins, using coins of denominations. And let's say you have 1, 2, and 5, 3 coins. And they are as many coins as you want. You have sufficient number of coins. Okay, fine. You can always do that. Like what is, so this is, in itself is not a problem. You can give me n rupee, I can give you 1 rupee coin, right? And 1 rupee coin. So there should be a criteria that you need to optimize. So that is where you will have to design an algorithm. Then what is your criteria? So the criterion is you want to use the minimum number of coins. Okay, so using all 1 rupee will not work because maybe there's a better possibility using 2 rupee and 5 rupee combination. So this is your problem. Okay, now you have all just learned dynamic programming. How will you solve it using dynamic programming? So what you will do? So you will say, okay, let me define my problem, say change I, that is minimum number of coins required to make a change for n rupees. Okay, and then what you will have to do, you have to write it in terms of the subproblems. So how will you do that? Okay, I have to make change for I rupees, and let's say generic case where I is greater than equal to 5. So you will say, okay, I can, the first coin I will take will be either 5 rupee or 2 rupee or 1 rupee. So if I take 5 rupee, how much change I have to, so this, let me write I here. How much money do I have to make change? I have I minus 5. Similarly, I minus 2, I minus 1. Okay, so fine. So then what will be the connection? What will be the equation? How do you connect this problem to subproblems? You will say, okay, then change I is nothing but I use 1 coin plus, and whatever is the minimum among these. Change of I minus 5, change of I minus 2, change of I minus 1. Okay, so whatever is the minimum, I will take that. So yeah, and that is my dynamic programming solution. Okay, so I will have to actually find out what is change I minus 5, what is change I minus 2, I minus 1, take the minimum of that and add a 1. That will give me the solution. Now this is fine, this is all right. Now that's where, let's see, how do we go from, so this is a dynamic programming solution. Now how do you go from this dynamic programming to a greedy solution? So in greedy solution, what you will have to do, okay, so do I actually have to compute all 3 and take minimum, or can I always say, let me just take this coin, okay, let me just take this coin. So what do you think? Suppose I have to make change for 12 rupees using minimum number of coins. What will you do? I'll see how many 5 rupee coin I can use, right? So I'll see 5, 5, and remaining is 2. I will use it 2. I'll not use 1, 1, right? So that is what I will do. And greedy algorithm just follows this. So what you do in greedy algorithm? So in greedy algorithm, you simply say, if, so n is the number of rupees for which you have to make change, and is getting 5, you select a 5 rupee coin. Else, if n is greater than 2, select 2. Else That means it has to be 1. Select. So I should say get min equal to 2. Yes, get min equal to 5. Okay. And accordingly, you can write and even a function. So you can say, so that recursive change for n rupees, if n is given 5, return 1 plus rec change n minus 5, and so on. Right? And that will be your greedy algorithm. And this will give you the same optimal solution that you were getting by the dynamic programming, by doing a less computation, right? By just making a greedy choice. You're not computing all 3. You're just taking one choice. So this is the difference between greedy and dynamic programming. Okay. Now what we said, so this was one thing, that if you can identify some easily computable property, right? Easily computable property, if it is greater than 5, choose 5 and so on. And you ensure that the solution, the choice that you're making is guaranteed to be in an optimal solution. Okay. Now that you may be able to see it, I mean, intuitively, but you also have to do a proof for this. So how can I also prove this? So how would you prove it? So that's where, so you say now, so suppose now I claim that my greedy algorithm works. Okay, so then we need a proof. So what is the proof? So yeah, so for that you have to use, okay, what exactly, what is the solution that greedy algorithm is proposing? So it says, okay, so suppose I have to make change for n rupee. So the greedy algorithm chooses exactly how many 5 rupee coins. So n by 5 take a floor. Okay, that many 5 rupee coins. Sure, we know that because it will choose as much as possible 5 rupee coins. Okay, as long as you can take 5 rupee, you use 5 rupee coins. Now you can say, okay, now suppose there is an optimal solution. So that is how the proof will go. So it will be like, okay, so suppose there is an optimal solution and that differs from this greedy. Yes. So suppose an optimal solution chooses T prime 5 rupee coins. Okay. Now, can T prime be larger than T? Is that even possible? No, because greedy is taking as much as possible 5 rupee coins. If T prime is larger than T, immediately the number will be like greater than N, right? So T prime cannot be larger than T. If T prime is T, you are going back to greedy algorithm, right? So let's take the case where T prime, so in general, T prime has to be less than equal to T. Yes. Now, if T prime is equal to T, you don't have a problem. Okay, we will go further for 2 rupee. But let's say, so let's assume T prime is less than T. So that means the optimal solution chooses less number of 5 rupee coins than the greedy solution. What does that mean? That means at least 5 times T minus T prime, right? That is the difference of the number of 5 rupee coins. So these many rupees have been changed in the optimal solution using, so what are the possibilities? So that much rupee, how will the optimal solution change that? So using 1 rupee and 2 rupee coins. Yes, it has to use 1 rupee and 2 rupee coins. Okay, so what can happen? So minimum is 5, at least 5 rupees have been changed. So there are 2 possibilities, maybe optimal solution usage all 2 rupee coins. So at least 3 2 rupee coins needs to be used. 3 2 rupee coins for making that change. Okay. Now, if it uses 3 2 rupee coins, you can always replace this solution with a 5 rupee plus 1 rupee coin, and you get a better solution. You have a less coins here. So this is a better solution. There is a contradiction. Yes, optimal solution is always the best. Cannot get better than that. So okay, this is not possible. Otherwise, it will use 2 plus 2 plus 1, or at least 1 coin, right? At least 1 rupee coin. Fine. But as soon as it uses 1 rupee coin, yes, to make a change for 5, any combination, actually any combination of 5 that uses 1, you can replace with a single 5. Okay, think about it. 5 you want to change using 1 plus something else. Yes, what are the possibilities? You can take all ones and so on, right? So you can always replace them by a single 5 rupee coin. So again, that you get a better solution. So that is also not possible. So that means, so T prime has to be T. Okay, so that means the optimal solution will use the same number of 5 rupee coins as my greedy solution. Now, what remains? So what is the sum that is remaining? This is at most 4. Sum of no more than 4 rupees. Now, when you are at this no more than 4 rupees, you can even try an exhaustive search of all the cases and say greedy solution is better. Okay, you can always do that. And there are other things that you can show. For example, you can show that in greedy, how many 1 rupee coins will be there? How many 1 rupee coins? At most 1. At most 1, cannot be more than 1. Yes, so you can use that fact also. But yeah, how many 1 rupee coins are there in the greedy solution and optimal solution and so on. So yeah, so this is interesting. So you can, so proof looks very trivial, but still it's a proof that yes, the optimal solution, any optimal solution that you're thinking cannot be better than the greedy solution. That means the greedy solution that you have found out has to be one of the optimal solutions, because there can be, maybe there are multiple optimal solutions possible. So it has to be one of the optimal solutions. And that's what we say, the greedy choice that you're making has to be in one of the optimal choices. Okay. Now, that's where another point of caution comes. So the greedy way of choosing may not always work. Greedy way of choosing may not always work. So you take the same problem. So suppose you want to make a change of n rupees using 5, 4, and 1. Okay, now instead of 2, we have given in denomination 4. Now, can you use the same greedy property? That as long as you can use 5, use 5. If you cannot use 5, use 4, otherwise use 1. So, will my greedy property still work? What do you think? So actually in this case, we can actually found a counter example. Suppose my n is 8. What will happen while your greedy property? You will first choose 5. Then 3 is remaining, you cannot choose 4. So 1, 1, 1. So you make 4 coins. But what is the optimal solution? So the optimal solution is I take 2 4 rupee coins. So that is only 2 coins. So that means the greedy property does not work here. So that means any greedy property that uh, you are identifying, you have to ensure that this is correct. You have to either do a proof, this is correct. So, or you find a counterexample, this is not correct. Yes, if you can find a counterexample, so whenever you have a greedy property, so once you identify a greedy property, so you need to do a proof. So you need to prove that this gives an optimal solution. Okay, then only you can say, okay, this is correct. But otherwise, suppose I give you a greedy property and you want to say this is not correct, this is not optimal. So you can, or you can give a counterexample. Where this greedy property does not give you an optimal solution. Okay, so yeah, that's what we will be doing in these lectures. Okay, so now once this idea is clear, let me now go to another problem. So let's take a problem that is called the activity selection problem. Okay. So uh, think about a classroom. Suppose you have a classroom. So suppose you have a classroom. Some classroom, NR121. Okay. Now, there are multiple teachers, multiple professors who are holding classes, and they are putting a request. Okay. So there may be classes for discrete, algo, and signals and systems, probability, and so on, right? So many people want to hold classes, and each class has some start time, some finish time. Okay, so suppose there are n requests, 1 to n. Okay, so each request has a start time, SI, and a finish time, FI. And obviously they will run for some time. So SI has to be strictly less than FI. Okay. Sure. Now, okay, so what is the problem? They are all wanting to do classes and they should do classes. So what is the problem? The problem will happen if suppose I say that, okay, I want to run my class from 10 to 11 for algo, but the discrete teachers say that, okay, they want to run class from 10:30 to 11:45. Okay, and another person may say, okay, the signals and systems, they may want to run class from 11 to 12. And now I have a single classroom. I have a single classroom. So I have a single classroom, and let's say that is available all the time, but two teachers cannot take the class at the same time. Yes, so Algo is asking for a slot 10 to 11, Algo, and this 10:30 to 11:45 is discrete. and 11 to 12 is signals and systems. Okay. Now, so of course I cannot run algo and discrete together. Yes. So algo and discrete cannot go together. Similarly, you can see discrete and signals and systems cannot go together. Yes, they are all, because there's a time period in which they are overlapping. So I cannot have discrete and signals and systems together. So discrete and signals and systems cannot go together. But I can run algo and signals and systems. Yes, this and this do not overlap. I finish my class at 11 and they start at 11. Looks good. That's how we used to have classes, right? 1 hour class and the next class starts. So algo and signals and systems, that looks fine. So yeah, or you can just run discrete, or you can just run discrete. That is also fine. So now you may start thinking, okay, yes, now we are coming to a problem. Yes, there are various people, they end requests, they have a start time, finish time, but some of them may overlap. So we call this something called a compatible, term like compatible. And you can see which of these are compatible, right? Algo and signals are compatible, but yeah, otherwise none other pairs are. So can you formally define? So let me formally define. So two requests, I and J, are said to be compatible if, what should be the criteria? They don't overlap, right? If they don't overlap. Now, can I formally define that in terms of the start and finish time? So what should happen? So either, say suppose this is I and this is J. So this is SI, FI, SJ, FJ. So one possibility could be either the finish time of I is less than equal to start time of J. Equal to is also fine. Or is there any other possibility? So the other possibility could be that I comes after J, right? So the other possibility could be, or Fj is less than equal to Sm. So if either of the two conditions happen, then they are compatible. Now, given this definition of compatibility, now can I write what is the optimization problem? See, this term is very important. The problem, generally we solve the problems that are some optimization problems. You want to optimize some objective. Now, what is the good objective? So now good objectives can be multiple. Yes, you will want to have, say, you will want to fill the classroom for the most amount of time. Or you can say, I want the maximum number of requests to be satisfied. Yes. So you can say, for example, we start with a goal that is, I want to select a compatible subset of requests that is of maximum size. So and to keep maximum people happy. Yes. So, and of course, do this efficiently. Yes. Why I'm saying do this efficiently? Can you think of a naive solution for doing this? Can you think of a naive solution? What is a naive solution? Just take all possible subsets. Take all possible subsets. And for each of these, each subset, what you will do? Okay, you check if they're compatible. Yes. So all the subsets that are compatible, now you filter those that are compatible, filter compatible one, and select the max size. Okay. So that is your naive algorithm. You don't need too much thinking. Yes, take all possible subsets, compute if they're compatible or not. But what is the problem? Doing it for all possible subsets. This is actually also called exhaustive search. And this is like exponential time. Okay, and we don't like exponential time algorithms. Okay, not good. So I want to do that efficiently, not exhaustive search. So okay, so that means yes, I know dynamic programming. Let me think in terms of that. If I can't think in terms of greedy, let's think in terms of dynamic. So what is the first thing we do for dynamic programming? Let's define this formally. You can think formally. Okay, so let's define this problem formally. So suppose there are n requests, a1 to an, okay, and we have the start time, finish time, and all. So s1 f1 to sn fn si fn. Now I need to define what is my sub problem, a single sub problem. So let's say Tij is my set of tasks, okay, among A1 and an. So A1 and an, so we also have to put them in some order. Let's say they are sorted in terms of their finish time. Say A1 finishes earliest, then A2, and so on up to AN. AN finishes at the end. So suppose they are sorted in terms of their finish time. So I define Tij as the set of tasks that start after AI finishes. So AI is not included. So this is, yeah, this may be tricky. You may actually define a different way, but let's say this, we use this definition. So it's a set of tasks that start after AI finishes and finish before AJ starts. Okay. So set of tasks that start after AI finishes and finish before AJ starts. And correspondingly, let Sij is the optimal solution for Tij. Okay. And what do I mean by optimal solution? This will give you the subset of the compatible subset of max size. Okay. So now what is my final solution? Can I write the final solution? So anyways, Sij is my subset, right? It's a subset. So let's define Cij as the size of Sij. Okay. Now what will be my final solution? So final solution would be for the tasks. Now this definition becomes tricky. You see, the definition says they start after AI finishes and finish before AI starts. But I have to find a solution for all the tasks. So as per this notation, I'll have to, what will I have to do? So I can get rid of this tricky situation by defining some dummy tasks. So let's define some two dummy tasks. So dummy tasks A0 and AN plus 1. So A0 says that the finish time is less than equal to the minimum start time of any activity. Okay. So I take the minimum start time of any activity and A0 has a finish time less than that. Okay. And similarly, AN plus 1 should have a start time that is greater than all the finish times. So f of n plus 1, sorry, start time. So s of n plus 1 should be getting equal to fn. Because they are anyway sorted in terms of finish time, so it should be larger than the finish time of the last activity. Okay, now if I consider these two dummy tasks, now can I use my definition to define what is the final solution? If I take all the tasks that start after A0 finishes, fine, its finish time is the smallest. I mean, it's the smaller than the start time of any activity, that start after A0 finishes and finish before an plus 1 starts. Yes, that is larger than the largest finish time. Then I'm done. So C of 0 n plus 1 is the final solution. Fine. So I know what is the final solution. Now I have to understand how to compute Cij. Yes, just like we do in dynamic programming. So now how do we compute Cij? So now, see, if I is equal to j or I, then this is 0. There is no activity you can choose. Otherwise, what you will have to do? So you have to choose some activity k in between. Yes. So you cannot choose I and j because I should be finished already and j should start later. So something between I and j. Okay. And suppose you choose k. So then what is your solution? What is your recurrence relation? So it will be, so C of I, so I has already finished, up to K has started, K is yet to start, before K starts. So I K plus you choose K plus K has finished and before J starts. Okay. So this is your recurrence. Cij max among all K between I and J, Cik plus 1 plus Ckj. And this becomes now standard dynamic programming. You can solve using dynamic programming. Yes. But we are not here for that, right? So, yeah. So now that's where we have to see how to depart from dynamic programming and go to a greedy solution. So, okay, greedy. So what, again, let's remember what do we do in greedy? So see if you can identify one choice guaranteed to be in at least one optimal solution. Okay. So when I'm choosing, suppose all between all the activities A0 to AN plus 1. Okay. So actually this is just dummy. Actually I'm choosing between A1 to AN. I need to make a choice. Okay. And this should be with some easily computable property. Now I can actually make a variety of choices. Okay. So let's just write down some choices. So I make a choice. Okay. This is the activity I will choose. So now you think, okay, suppose I give you a start time, finish time of multiple activities, and you have to choose one of this. Okay, this has to be in the optimal solution. Which one? What will be that property? So property can be things like, okay, let's write down some things. So select an activity with the shortest time. Let's say shortest time. Fi minus Si, it's the smallest. And this looks fine, right? Oh, maybe somebody needs a room for only for 5 minutes. And if I give it to that person, it may leave the room for the maximum amount of time. Yes. So we think, okay, if I choose an activity with the shortest time, that would leave resources available for max amount of time, and that may be fine. Yes. What do you think? So remember what, so whenever we find a greedy property, what do? Either we prove this is correct or we find a counterexample. So proof or counterexample. Okay. Shortest time. Mhm. Let's write down some other property. Other thing could be, okay, I have all these activities A1 to AN, and I choose a property that finishes earliest. It finishes at the earliest. So that means, yes, your resource is available for whatever time that is remaining. So you can select an activity with the earliest finish time. So you see this property 2 is different from 1. In 1, I was selecting a property that has the smallest Fi minus Si. Yes. Here I am choosing the property with the smallest Fi. Okay. Analogously, you can also take the one that starts at the end. Okay. And what else? You can think other properties. For example, okay, what about choosing an activity uh, for which that is compatible with the minimum number of activities? Yes. So choose an activity with minimum number of incompatibilities. And that also looks fine. Yes. If it is not incompatible with many, maybe I should choose that um, because I want to find a subset that is compatible. And that would actually leave maximum number of activities. Good. And you can actually think about many other greedy choices, okay, greedy properties. Now, this is the first thing you should learn that, okay, you are given a problem, you have to solve an optimization problem, and you should be able to identify some greedy properties. Okay, so here all these are some greedy properties. Now, the next thing is all of them may not be correct. So in general here, I'll say only one of these is correct. Okay, only one of this is correct. So let's see if I can find a counter example for some of this. Okay, so let's see the one. Activity with the shortest time. Okay, now does it always have to be in the optimal solution? So yeah, now you have to think adversarially. That is, okay, try to design a set of requests such that if I choose an activity with the shortest time, I don't end up with an optimal solution. Okay, so fine, that is very easy, you see. So think about set of activities. One is very, very small. Okay, let's say this size denotes the time you need that activity for, and create two activities that are incompatible with this, but they are for much longer time. Okay, and let's say you had your resource available from here to here. Now you see, now suppose I use this greedy property. I still choose the activity with the shortest time. I'll end up choosing this. But once I choose this, I cannot choose this or this because both are incompatible. And this is one thing about greedy, you cannot go back. Once you have chosen, it has to be in one of the optimal solution. Yes. So in this case, this is not. This is not in an optimal solution. So that means this is not a correct greedy property. Activity with the shortest time. Okay. That is not good. Not a good property. Let's take the second one. Activity with the earliest finish time. Can you find a counterexample where an activity that finishes early, the earliest, but will not be in the optimal solution? Will not be in any optimal solution. You can think, for example, I have an activity that finishes the earliest, but there is another activity that is running longer, and then there is an activity. Yes. But you see, even if you create an example like that, and generally I will choose optimal solution as this and this, but I don't care about how much time the resource has been utilized. Okay, this is good. The solution is good because it is utilizing the resource for the maximum number of time. But on the other hand, suppose I choose uh, this and this. This is fine. This will still give me a subset of 2. Okay, so that means this is not a good counterexample. Try on your own if you can find a counterexample. I could not find. Okay, so it's a question mark. It's a question mark. In general, I feel this looks good because this property looks good because if I choose the activity that finishes earliest, because everything is starting at the same time, that would leave my resource available for the maximum number of time. Okay, nothing finishes earlier than this. So this looks quite good to me. But yeah, we will have to prove this. Let's see the third one. Activity with minimum number of incompatible requests. Okay. So now this is again tricky. So here, can you think of a counterexample where a request with the minimum incompatibilities is not in my final solution? So let's see the counterexample we gave for 1. Was that working out here? So this had actually 2 incompatibilities. So you would not choose them. You will either choose this or this. So in this case, this will lead to the correct solution. Let's see this one. So this has 1 incompatibility, this has 1 incompatibility. And this has 0, so you will choose this, right? Then among these, you will choose any. So again, in both the examples, this works. Is that the correct one? Okay. Let's think. Let's think. Minimum number of incompatibilities. So I can try to design a scenario where, so let's say I have, so you need to design a scenario. So suppose this is my optimal solution. There are 4 requests. Now try to have a non-optimal solution with minimum incompatibility. So suppose something like create a situation like this. And think about this one. Now, this cannot be optimal. This cannot be optimal because If you choose this, you have to choose this and this. So only three requests can be accommodated. But here in the optimal solution, you have four. But this has two incompatibility. This has two, this has two, this has one. So in that way, if you start choosing incompatibility, you will never choose this one. So you have to also make arrangements so that your greedy property ends up choosing this. So let's try to design that. So this has two incompatibility. So do something so that all of the requests have more than two. Okay. So how can you do that? How how can you modify your problem or settings such that all the requests have more than two incompatibilities? It's very easy. You can just add some repeat these requests. Okay, now you see how many incompatibility this has. 1 2 3, this has 1 2 3 4, this has 1 2 3 4, this has 1 2 3, right? And this has 2. So it looks like this has only 2 incompatibilities, and I'll end up choosing this by this greedy property, but immediately this will give me non-optimal solution. Okay, so this was an interesting design. So, but yeah, so that means this is again not a greedy property. That is not an optimal property. So we are left with two. We are left with two. That is, choose the activity with the earliest finish time. So what will be the algorithm? Choose the activity with the earliest finish time, and then you remove all the incompatible things. Okay, and you continue. So you remove all the incompatible activities and again continue until all the requests are processed. Huh. Sure. But now you have to furnish a proof. So let's do the proof. So fine, we go back to our definitions of, so we had this Tij. Tij, task, that set of tasks starting after AI finishes and finishing before AJ starts. Okay. And now let AM be an activity in Tij that has the earliest finish time. Okay. Now, what my greedy property says that I have to choose AM. That means AM is included in some optimal solution of Tij. Now, this is what I have to prove. So, if AM is the activity with the smallest finish time, it is included in some optimal solution of Tij. So, let's try to prove it. So, generally, for greedy algorithms, how the proofs proceed, you try to uh, assume some optimal solution. So let Sij be the optimal solution. That means, so this is a max size subset of the mutually compatible activities in Tij. Now, So in this max size subject that I have taken, okay, so Sij is the optimal solution. So now, see, first we try to assume an optimal solution, and then we show that, okay, this is same as greedy, or you can convert it to greedy, and that will still keep on behaving like an optimal solution. So this is the trick. So show if it is different than greedy. You can convert it greedy while remaining optimal. Okay, so let's try to do the proof. So then what do I need to do? I know AM, an activity with the smallest finish time in Tij, was by greedy solution. So now let's find out what is the activity with the smallest finish time in Sij. So let AM be an activity with the earliest finish time in Sij. Okay. Now if AN is same as AM, we are done. Don't have to prove anything because the greedy solution is coming into optimal directly. But otherwise, if AN is not equal to AM, can you say something about some connection between AN and AM? Because AM had the smallest finish time among all Tij. So AN's finish time has to be larger. Yes. So that means, or it has to be same if they were two with the same finish time. So Fn is greater than equal to Fn. Yes. Now, so now go back to our trick. So if it is not the same, try to convert this optimal solution to, so that it starts behaving like the greedy one. I mean, it starts behaving same as greedy one without compromising on the optimality. So let's say then fine. So let's take Sij prime. So you're modifying Sij, that is Sij minus, you remove An and include An. Okay. No. So first of all, is Sij prime is still an optimal solution? That is two things. Are the activities still compatible? Second, size same. So second one is fine. I removed one activity and included one activity. So its size is same as Sij. But are the activities still compatible with each other? So that for that you see, uh, what I did, I removed An, and An has a larger finish time. Yes. An had the smallest finish time in Sij. Yes. So Sij, how would it look like? So Sij would look like An will come first, then something else, something else. Yes. An had the smallest finish time. Now what I'm trying to do, I'm replacing it with another activity that has a smallest finish time. Okay. Replace it with another activity that has a smaller finish time. That means it will still continue to remain compatible. Yeah, it, because An was compatible, so Am has to be compatible. So that means Sij prime activities are also disjoint compatible, and that's your proof. Okay, so that's how the greedy algorithms proof generally work. Okay, so we were at the proof. Yeah, so a few things happened with the machine. So I'm recording this again, and you can see some things written that were not there earlier. So in general, that's how the proof for a greedy algorithm proceeds. So you try to assume an uh, to try to have a greedy property. So like here the property was that among Tij, I choose the one activity with the earliest finish time. And then this should be in the optimal solution. Then you try to assume an optimal solution like Sij. And the trick is that uh, see if this is same as greedy or different. If it is different, then you try to modify this Sij so that it starts up looking like greedy. Okay, so we said, okay, what is the activity with the earliest finish time in Sij? If it is same as AM, we are done. If it is not same, then you try to modify this. Okay, and then we said, okay, is it still compatible? Yes. Same size? Yes. So it is still an optimal solution. So that means the greedy property that you found, the solution has to be in at least one optimal solution. So that's what we did. Okay, and then we can talk about the pseudocode for this. So actually pseudocode would be easier. So if you assume that the activities are already sorted, so as per their finish time, and let's say we have two arrays. So S and F. So start time and finish times. Okay. So let's say we have these two arrays. So then what will be my greedy activity selector? Yeah. So you see what you are doing. Firstly, you find out how many activities do you have. So you can say by what is the length of S. Okay. Now you see they are sorted as per their finish time. So you have to always select the first activity. So you select the first activity in your activity set, and you have a variable that says, okay, what is the last activity you have selected? Why is that needed? Because they are sorted as per their finish times. So last activity selected. So if you have to check compatibility, you will see if the start time of this activity is larger than the finish time of K. That is sufficient for compatibility checking. So now what is your iterative loop? You will say for m is equal to 2 to n. So you take each activity and see if it is compatible. So if Sm is greater than or equal to f of k, that is compatible, then you include that in your activity. And your k becomes m. Okay, and that's all is your main loop. And after this loop is over, you simply return. Okay. So what is the complexity? So you see this is just a linear time algorithm, order n, but with a note that the activities have to be sorted as per finish times. If they're not sorted as per their finish times, then you will have to run uh, a sorting algorithm and order and log n time. Otherwise, okay. So this is one greedy algorithm that we did. Now we will try a next algorithm. Okay.